What happens when a nation gets injected with dementia? Dementia from the top, but also institutional dementia. A lack of memory as to why things are the way they are. Why did the founders set up a situation where there's a tricameral approach to government? Checks and powers and checks on power and checks and balances, as it were. Well, institutional dementia has people thinking it's just politics. It's just this time that the Supreme Court did this or that. Just politics. Now, I do think there is politics in the Supreme Court. I think that John Roberts tries to steer the court towards, hey, let's give this side this and this side that, and occasionally pulling out some decent jurisprudence. It's on the topic, though, of immunity and limited immunity for presidents, or begin the exploration of institutional dementia among the populace, and of course, figurehead Biden being the perfect figurehead for such a time as this. Paper bullies who get to control men with guns, tough men with guns, are far more dangerous than a tough man with a gun. Merrick Garland's proving that. Merrick Garland was asked by Thomas Massey, hey, has the position of special prosecutor been funded? And of course he did this, Senator, I'm not going to. No, it's a simple question. Has it been funded? Did we get to review this special prosecutor? Has been through a congressional review? No, I'm not going to. Well, no, the answer is no. So number one, Jack Smith is not truly a special prosecutor. He's a political appointee of Merrick Garland. Number two, the J6 committee. It was an extra constitutional committee from the very beginning. And of course, it actively destroyed evidence, suppressed evidence, did not bring about exculpatory evidence, evidence that would show that President Trump tried to stop the very thing that happened by offering up National Guard troops and, in fact, demanding that they be there to protect the Capitol. That exculpatory evidence was never allowed in. Or the video that suddenly surfaced of Nancy Pelosi accepting responsibility for not protecting the Capitol. So there's that. And when we get back to the genesis of the Jack Smith case, the Jack Smith case was President Trump fomented an insurrection. He led it and caused it to happen. Fascinatingly enough, Jack Smith never charged President Trump with launching an insurrection because Jack Smith knows he can't prove that because it never happened. Also because he knows it would open him up to discovery, something that Jack Smith deeply and energetically wants to avoid. So the question became, if President Trump had immunity for his actions on J6, and here's where the left will try to come at this is, well, he wasn't acting in official capacity. Here's what John Roberts, the majority opinion, says from the Supreme Court on this topic. We conclude that under our constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential power requires that a former president have some immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts during his tenure in office, at least with respect to the president's exercise of his core constitutional powers. This immunity must be absolute. As for his remaining actions, he's also entitled to immunity. At the current stage of proceedings in this case, however, we need not and do not decide whether that immunity must be absolute or instead whether a presumptive immunity is sufficient. It is these enduring principles that guide our decision in this case. The president enjoys no immunity for his unofficial acts, and not everything related that the president does is official. The president is not above the law, but Congress may not criminalize the president's conduct in carrying out responsibilities of the executive branch under the Constitution. And the system of separated powers designed by the framers has always demanded an energetic, independent executive. The president, therefore, may not be prosecuted for exercising his core constitutional powers, and he's entitled, at a minimum, to presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. That immunity applies equally to all occupants of the Oval Office, regardless of politics, policy, or party. It's a good statement, and it's part of their decision. The left is going to immediately dive into this and say, going and saying that the election was stolen, that's not an official act of the president. It is. In fact, it is his moral, constitutional, and in fact, spiritual duty to call out a stolen election if he thinks it was stolen. if President Trump was pretending he didn't really think it was stolen, that is going to be a topic for him and God to deal with, or rather for God to deal with and Trump to hear about. The left dove into this in a bizarre fashion. A lawyer, we'll get to this, has now an opinion about what could happen to Steve Bannon, who is in prison. As you know, Bannon surrendered himself. He refused to reply to January 6 subpoenas, citing executive privilege. You know who else hasn't responded to congressional subpoenas? Well, Merrick Garland. And Congress does have the capacity to arrest him, and they should arrest him. And they should make him stay in that cell until such time as he produces the documents. The documents of what? Figurehead Biden, no doubt, stumbling through his conversation with an actual special prosecutor who looked into his stolen documents case. Headache though it might cause, Merrick Garland is supposed to release this, is legally compelled to do it, and headache it might cause. Congress should put him in jail for every minute that Steve Bannon's in jail. There has to be some equal cost in this. There has to be skin in the game. This is an actual lawyer, and this is a guy who actually helped write some of the Ukraine impeachment whistleblower stuff. This is a guy with influence. His name is Brady Moss. According to the Supreme Court, he writes, President Biden can have the military execute Bannon in the prison showers tonight and be immune from prosecution. So he wants to pretend that a core constitutional power of a president is to call for the execution of an American citizen without due process. No, in fact, that's not the case. It's not anywhere near a core constitutional power. This is how desperate they are given this case. And remember, this may be something that they need to pull out to protect figurehead Biden. Difference is this. Figurehead Biden committed a majority of his crimes while he was a senator and a vice president. Sure, he's committing some now. He's almost certainly being caused to take actions on behalf of foreign nations now. He's almost certainly receiving monies in some form, probably held by family members until such time as figurehead Biden is out of office, and then Jill will have that money to spend. Probably that's how it's being done. But he committed many, many crimes before he was president and was a senator. That stuff is not under the presidential immunity, and they should know this. So they should, in fact, be celebrating this case, celebrating it, but they can't. There is a massive, massive divide. Our nation, having been injected with dementia at the top, is very, very much like the time in Israel where King Josiah learned that there was something called the law. In the era of a king named Josiah, who I think was 9 years old when he took the throne, 9. And he'd been raised around royalty, so he kind of knew the ropes, but 9. He had some trusted advisors, but he was 9. In the 18th year of his reign, which I think would make him about 27 years old, this happened. This is from 2 Kings chapter 22, verses 3 through 10. In the 18th year of his reign, King Josiah sent the secretary, Shaphan, son of Azaliah, the son of Mesullam, to the temple of the Lord. He said, "Go up to Hilkiah, the high priest, and have him get ready the money that has been brought into the temple of the Lord, which the doorkeepers have collected from the people. Have them entrust it to the men appointed to supervise the work on the temple, and have these men pay the workers who repair the temple of the Lord, the carpenters, the builders, and the masons. Also have them purchase timber and dress stone to repair the temple, but they need not account for the money entrusted to them because they are honest in their dealings." Hilkiah, the high priest, said to Shaphan, the secretary, "I have found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord." He gave it to Shaphan, who read it. Then Shaphan, the secretary, went to the king and reported to him, "Your officials have paid out the money that was in the temple of the Lord and have entrusted it to the workers and supervisors at the temple." Then Shaphan, the secretary, informed the king, "Hilkiah, the priest, has given me a book." And Shaphan read from it in the presence of the king. Israel had nearly forgotten the law. It was hidden in a temple. in a wall, tradition has it, hidden inside a wall. They found that as they were repairing the temple, the nation had forgotten the law. Our presidents enjoy immunity, limited immunity for their official acts. Why? Because if that immunity does not exist, you can have a Congress, a rogue Congress, charging presidents with anything and everything in order to keep them away from the political battlefield, or say, putting in prison their key advisors like Steve Bannon. There's another thing that's forgotten, though, in addition to this, in the institutional memory. To the people who are doing this to Bannon, God knows your motive. He knows every single inch of your motive, and every word that you've ever whispered in the dark, he's aware of. Have you forgotten that? You think you're hiding it away when you destroy evidence, like the J6 committee did, when you hide the exculpatory evidence, but God has seen all the evidence, every bit of it. And you will one day have a conversation with God. You'll be on your knees. You may not know that, but you will be, because every knee will bow. You will go to the judgment throne, and you will be asked to defend something, but in this case, God will have seen everything. What are you going to be left with? Well, begging for mercy unless you repent now. And you can repent, and Jesus is anxious to forgive and to welcome you back into the family.